Okay, well, welcome everybody. So for our advancement seminar this evening, Dave and Colleen Leahy are going to go about and present advancement for Scouts with special needs. And with that, Dave and Colleen, why don't you guys take it away?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Um, as part of this call, we have several people that are from the Council Advancement Committee and several that are on the Advancement Committee and the Special Needs Committee, and then some that are on the Special Needs Committee. So I'm going to ask that as we get started, as we're presenting, if I'm in presentation mode, I don't have any visibility into the chat. So if I could ask any of our advancement folks or special needs folks that are on the call to monitor that. And if there are any questions that come up that we need to address as we come through, please let us know. Okay.
I'll keep an eye on
Um,
that, Cal.
Thank you. My name is Colleen Leahy, and my husband Dave Leahy, who is also on the call, we're going to be giving the presentation. The two of us co-chair the Special Needs Committee for Pathway to Adventure Council. Our committee has been in one form or another around for 12 years. We started out as a district committee when we were at Des Plaines Valley Council and morphed into a council-wide committee once we merged. And the way we function is that we have a special needs champion in every one of the districts. So as questions or needs arise, you should have somebody that is familiar to you within your own district that frequents your roundtables and is somebody who's familiar to you. However, should you not know who that person is, there is a tab on the council webpage that is dedicated to the Special Needs Committee, and there's an email on there. And if you send an email to that email address, it goes to Dave and me and our professional advisor, and we will either connect with you or get you with somebody in your district that can connect with you. So I just wanted to lay that out there before we got started. This evening's presentation is going to be focusing primarily on advancement opportunities for Scouts with special needs. So there are a lot of different things that you can do to accommodate a Scout that has learning differences, physical needs, emotional needs, all sorts of different things, supports that are available to you. So with that said, one of the things that really struck me is when I was taking the DEI training through the council, through the national webpage, which is the required training up until recently to become a Citizenship and Society Merit Badge Counselor. This is a quote that was offered in that training, and it really struck me because this is materially what we are attempting to do with this committee. So diversity is being invited to the party. Equity is having an accessible dance floor. Inclusion is being asked to dance, and belonging is dancing like no one's watching. And really, what we are attempting to do here is to make Scouting accessible to everybody, no matter what barriers they see in themselves or their leaders see that they don't know how to accommodate. We want to make sure that Scouting is there for everybody who wants to be in Scouting. So as we mentioned, we want Scouting for everyone. There are a few pictures that we put in this PowerPoint presentation that are actual pictures of Scouts within our council doing what they're doing and being able to participate fully in the activities that we offer. All youth are welcome. Doesn't matter what kind of unit you have, boys, girls, family units. We're all about making sure that whatever program that you're affiliated with, that there is accessibility for you. So Dave, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Why do we want all Scouts to be included in our scouting adventures is because we believe that Scouts, in including everyone in Scouts with different abilities, we improve the unit themselves and enrich the whole unit, not just the individual with the disability, but everyone involved. It teaches all kinds of different skills to those other scouts involved, and it just like everybody else, what does a scout with disabilities really want? To be included and be a part of, instead of standing on the outside looking in. And it certainly is the opportunity within scouting to do so.
So the types of disabilities that you might encounter as a unit leader supporting a scout with a disability really can be anything. I think very often people focus on physical disabilities. When they have a scout that has a physical disability, very often that is something that you can point at and say, I see that that scout, is in a wheelchair, or that scout is walking with braces, or, that scout is wearing glasses and has poor vision. Those are things that we can all point to and say, aha, I know who it is that I have to support on their journey through accessible scouting. The ones that are a little trickier are the invisible disabilities. Now, ADHD and ADD is prevalent amongst youth, primarily boys, but it affects girls as well. Autism, we're seeing a lot of scouts with autism. Fine and gross motor skills. Anxiety is one of those things that is very impactful, and yet again, you can't point at it. We just know that sometimes scouts are reluctant to do things. They're anxious about doing things, but doing something new and being a little cautious about that is a different thing than having anxiety. Diagnosed anxiety can be very debilitating. There could be some things as simple as, or I shouldn't call it simple as food allergies, but you'll notice that whenever we have events, especially if Dave does a lot of cooking for the council, and we have made a really concentrated effort over the course of the last 12 years to make sure that when we are offering events, if we are providing food, you should be asked if you have any food allergies or sensitivities so that you can fully participate. Because, I can remember when our sons first joined scouting, we had a scout that was recently diagnosed with celiac disease, and his parents pulled him out of scouting because they were fearful of what that might mean in terms of being able to feed their child at an outing and make sure that their child was not going to get ill. Can totally appreciate that. Today, many years later, we would have a plan of action to be able to do that, to make sure that somebody with celiac disease could meaningfully participate, and we could guarantee that they were healthy, with anything that we provided them food wise. But anyway, all sorts of different things. One of the things that we always keep in mind is that statistically 20% of all scouts have some sort of disability, whether it's physical or invisible. So, that's a pretty significant number. And of course, that's just the scouts, not, the leaders also supporting our scouts may have some of those same issues here as well. And we're here to support everybody.
And just so everybody knows, those numbers that we're coming up with roughly 20% come from the CDC. They're not numbers we're making up or just pulling out of the sky. They say one of every five kids nowadays has some diagnosis.
And I guess we should also mention that we cannot quantify it in terms of scouting because we don't take a poll. We don't know what anybody has in terms of what's on your medical form. Doesn't go into a master file anywhere that tells us what the percentages are. We just know what there is in the general population. So whatever's in the general population, we know that we are dealing with it as well. Now, tonight we're going to be concentrating on the Guide to Advancement. If that's not something that you're familiar with, the Guide to Advancement came about in, I want to say, 2011, where they started putting together some of the requirements that have always been a part of how you advance through scouting, morphed into this document. And at that point, they take a look at this every few years and they make modifications to it based on feedback and what's new, what's been rolled out in terms of, there was a time that merit badges could only be done in person and with a concrete blue card. Things like that are addressed in here. But there are a number of different sections. Section 10 specifically covers scouts, advancement for scouts with special needs. And in 2025, that section, every year they modify some portion of it. In 2025, they modified the entire section 10. There wasn't a single part of this that did not get touched in some way. So even if you were familiar with it before then, if you haven't taken a look at it in the last year, I would encourage you to do that. Now, one of the things that they added to the Guide to Advancement, and I really enjoy this part in section 10, is the difference between accommodations and modifications, because some well-meaning people will try to help scouts with special needs, and sometimes in an effort to do so, will change requirements that the kids have to go through in order to advance or to do a merit badge or what have you. But we as leaders don't have the ability to change requirements. We are not allowed to make changes that eliminate requirements, that meaningfully alter requirements. That said, we do have the ability to be super creative in how we interpret those things. And this chart that is now in the Guide to Advancement really gives us a good idea of what we can and cannot do. So when we're talking about accommodations, there's an accommodation column here and a modification. So accommodation is we change how scouts are learning. So not what they're learning, but how they're learning. So let's say that we are, oh gosh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Dave, do you have an example right here?
Well, certainly if somebody is having to go on a hike, these and they are in a wheelchair, certainly rolling on whatever mobility needs they have, it is appropriate. They do not, just because it says to go on a hike, doesn't mean they have to walk. If they are in a wheelchair, it can be motorized, it can be whatever. They are going on a hike, and that is not changing what they are doing. It's just how they are accomplishing what needs to be done.
The other thing is that, very often when you're looking at merit badges, and, of course, we have all of the required merit badges to get to Eagle, but any of the merit badges, when you're looking at it, it'll say, write this down, give an example of that, and it will tell you what it wants you to do within the body of that merit badge requirement. And very often people get caught up on the interpretation on how a scout can deliver that information. So for one thing, if it's telling you that you have to present a document of some sort, the scouts can use the voice to text accommodation. So they don't have to physically put pen to paper. They can, if they have verbal issues and it says explain, they can explain by typing it out. They can explain by using cue cards. They can explain, in whatever method that they normally use to communicate. If that is what they are unable to do, explaining doesn't mean that they have to verbally explain. So being really generous in that interpretation of how that is accomplished is important. And you can see here in the column where it tells you what different devices and what have you can use. And it says on the right-hand side, earn pioneering merit badge instead of the camping merit badge. A modification isn't something that you can do at a unit level, but if you had somebody that could not do camping and wanted to be able to do pioneering, there is a process that you go through. So that's where this continues on and says, okay, is it a unit level decision? No, it can't be. An accommodation can be made at a unit level, like being able to write something down. versus verbalizing something. But if it's something that's like
If you need to
substituting
change,
pioneering for camping, that's something that has to happen through the Council Advancement Committee.
right, you cannot
So,
change any merit badge for anybody who's in Scouts BSA. You cannot change any of the requirements in any merit badge, but for the modifications, we through the Council Advancement Committee can change what merit badges need to be earned to earn the ranks.
mhm. And that there's a process that you would go through, and this presentation that we will do will take you through those. So the first step, if you have a scout with a disability, we would recommend that you start documenting it. If you're going to be asking for any of the type of formal modifications, there is paperwork that's required in order to substantiate that the scout meets the requirements to make those changes. So these can be done in any order. I know it says 1 through 6. There are 6 things that we're recommending, but do in whatever order makes sense to you. But when you're putting in the paperwork, for instance, if you wanted to request a different merit badge, like for instance, I recently had a scout that was unable to swim, hike, or bike. So any of the ones that are in the category for those merit badges, this scout was unable to do. So we needed to start modifying or coming up with a plan to request an alternate Eagle Required Merit Badge for this particular scout. As part of that process, we had to get a letter from the parent explaining the nature of the disability. The unit leader also submitted one of those as well. We need to make sure that they verify that they're a youth in the program. So that's done through the application. They have to complete a health form so that we have all of that in the file. A health statement from the professional. So you're going to want to get something from your doctor that says this is the nature of the disability and this is why that scout cannot perform what is being asked of them. Now, depending on what you're asking, that letter could look a little bit different. So you're going to want to tailor that letter to make sure that it addresses the why it can't be accomplished as written. We talked about getting the letter from the unit leader and then other available documentation, things that might be relevant is if the scout has an IEP. An IEP is an individualized education plan that if the student has a disability that's documented within a public school setting, that's going to be a document that is going to give us valuable information as to what their present level of performance is, what their obstacles are, the challenges that they would face performing any of these types of advancement challenges that you're seeing. Dave, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, I think you covered that one quite well. And I guess I will just add Elizabeth Villagrana joined. I just want to let you know if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to either throw them in the chat or raise a hand and we'll see if we can answer.
Okay. So in terms of a process for documenting a disability, with your paperwork, the parents and the leader, they're each going to submit something that says what that disability is. The medical assessment, the BSA form, the IEP, there's a lot of arrows going on here and they don't all have to go in this order, but this is the composite of what we need in order to be able to substantiate to the Council Advancement Committee that we have all of the paperwork that includes all of these items in order to be able to justify that we are making changes to a scout's advancement. Okay. Whether that is an individualized scout advancement plan, which is like an IEP to get a scout to first class, whether it's changing a merit badge requirement, whether we're asking for a scout to be reclassified under registration beyond the age of eligibility, which classifies a scout as a youth participant beyond the age of 18. So they could perpetually be considered a youth in the eyes of scouting.
And I will say, just add one quick thing that we need all of those things, not just 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6. You
Mhm.
need all the items to be packaged together and go to the advancement team for them to be able to do it, or else it just takes longer because they'll have to come back and ask for additional information.
So registration beyond the age of eligibility is the classification that we give a scout with severe disability that wants to continue in scouting beyond the age of 18. Now, you can start this process at any time once a scout is in the Scouts BSA program or venturing if they're in part of a ship or what have you. It's probably premature to start this when a scout is a Cub Scout. Okay. But you could. What we usually ask is that you see how a scout works their way through the scouting program. And very often we find that scouts that have a lot of challenges rise to the occasion. And what we absolutely know about this program is that the volunteers that work with our scouts are just phenomenal human beings that will move heaven and earth to try to make opportunities for scouts to be successful at whatever they set their goals for. But while we don't necessarily want you to start filling out the paperwork when a scout is 6, we certainly don't want you to wait until they're 17 and a half. If they are struggling, if they are demonstrating that they are putting their best effort out there and it does not look like that they're advancing at this pace that they want to, that they're really super engaged in the program and don't want to see it come to an end, absolutely turn that paperwork in or get it started early on. The one thing with the registration beyond the age of eligibility that I want to point out, and we're going to mention this a couple times because it is new within the last year, is that the Guide to Advancement really spelled out for us who it is suitable to give this designation to. And that is in the green box at the bottom of this page. So there's a form and that you fill out, and there are all the documents that we talked about on the previous slide, and the council advancement team has to approve it and the scout executive needs to approve it. But it points out that registration beyond the age of eligibility is not appropriate for most types of disabilities or for moderate levels of learning, developmental, or intellectual disability. Even with a disability, a young adult should go on living like a young adult rather than remaining a scout indefinitely. An adult that is appropriate for registration beyond the age of eligibility usually has a guardian or a conservator to help manage finances, living arrangements, and medical care. So with that said, it really tightens up when we can apply this designation. And I think in the past, sometimes people would have a scout that was clearly disabled that would get to the point where they were like 17 years old and start this process and wonder whether or not their scout really qualified for this. And you have that last minute push to try to figure out whether or not a scout was truly suited to this designation. And it always, every case I can remember, there were always questions as to when it's suitable to apply it. And this really defines that. So, or at least helps define it. Now, does that mean that you absolutely need to have a guardian or a conservator? No, that's just an example. I will tell you that Dave and I have a son that has special needs that he earned Eagle. He's not registration beyond the age of eligibility. In fact, at the time, he didn't qualify, and yet he will never live independently. We are not his guardians because that is not suitable for his disability, but he checks a bunch of the boxes, not all of the boxes. And so, that's one of the things that you kind of look at when we're trying to figure out what's in the best interest of the scout. And this really helps start that conversation because it really is a conversation. Every case is unique. Dave, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, you covered everything there.
Okay. Now, again, we have one of these flow charts. What we start out with, is there a qualifying disability? If the answer is no, then you're in the standard membership. And there are other things that we can do within the framework of standard membership. If you want registration beyond the age and it does have a qualifying disability, you're going to start with your unit leader. They're verifying the disability, and the unit leader does not verify the disability. The unit leader verifies there is a disability by the methods that we talked about: doctor's note, an individualized education plan, the note from the parent, the BSA health record, all of that. We're going to make sure all of the documents are in place. And then once that is all established, by the way, which is covered in section 10.2.0.2 of the Guide to Advancement. So it takes you through step by step what needs to happen. But again, and I know, Elizabeth, you missed the beginning. Every district has a special needs champion. That is an excellent opportunity for you to meet if you already know your district champion, because that person can help you navigate this process. But once we have all the paperwork, it's submitted, and then it goes through the approval process. If it is approved, that youth or that scout is classified as a youth in the system. And then they'll be able to proceed and continue on with the youth program beyond their 18th birthday, and they maintain that status as long as they remain active in scouting.
There has been scouts, and just recently, scouted was around 40 years old who earned Eagle. So it's not something that doesn't happen for sure.
Yeah, every now and again we do get them, and it's kind of cool to see that they've been chugging away in the background for all these years, and then when they get to take their victory lap, it's fun for everybody. These are just some possible criteria. You can see these are wide ranging. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but there are a lot of different disabilities that could fall under this, and again, pointing to the restriction that they have imposed in section 10 of the Guide to Advancement is now saying that we really want to be only applying this in the most severe circumstances. So what if a scout can't accomplish a requirement as it's written? So the nature of the disability, whether it's, and I should clarify too, the disability could be temporary. It doesn't have to be a lifelong disability. We have scouts all the time that have had surgery. They break a leg, they break an arm, they have to go through physical therapy. They're chugging away towards their advancement, and and everything's going as expected, and then something unexpected happens. So in those circumstances, these same types of accommodations can be applied with the proper paperwork. There's two different ways that you can modify these. They're available to scouts with registered beyond the age of eligibility, and then scouts with permanent mental disability or anything that's expected to last beyond the 18th birthday. The requirement procedures is saying are specific to each scouting program, meaning like what you're expected to do with Cub Scouts is different from Scouts BSA. And then there are within the Sea Scout program and venturing program, they're following much the same as the Scouts BSA. It's simple with the Cub Scout advancement. It's do your best. So if the parent, who is the primary person who is signing off or letting the unit leader know what has been accomplished, is letting that person know that they've done the best they can, or the unit leader has observed that themselves, that is up to them if they're trying their hardest, our goal at a Cub Scout program is to have the kids have fun, to want to stay and enjoy, working with their peers and getting the most that they can out of the program. This young man who you can see in this picture was at one of our shooting sports events. He was having a blast. We were shooting arrows, and he was having a blast. And we have some adaptive equipment for some of the things that we do, but it's the end goal is to have them have a good time at that age. That's really what we're trying to get from the program. Now, with Scouts BSA rank advancement, rank requirements have to be written or completed as written. So it's a no more, no less sort of a situation. So again, we can be generous in our interpretation of those, but we cannot change the rank requirements. For Scout, Tenderfoot, second class, and first class, those requirements can be modified through a process that's called an individualized Scout advancement plan. It's like an IEP for scouting. Now, if you have a scout that, for instance, going back to the scout that I had that couldn't earn the hiking, biking, or swimming, when you're looking at rank advancement, those are the same things we're asking scouts to hike. We're asking scouts to pass a swim test. A lot of the same things will apply. And so the same scout, when we were looking at advancement in the earlier ranks, we had to go through an individualized Scout advancement plan and find a meaningful way for them to do the same requirements, the spirit of the requirements, but find a different way to get there. And so that was all documented, and again, with all of the proper paperwork, and submitted to the Council Advancement Committee for approval. Dave, is there anything you want to add there?
No, nothing I can add.
Okay. So again, going through our flow chart, does the disability exist? No. No, you're using the standard requirement. If a disability does exist and the answer is yes, you're going to document it. You're going to work to craft those requirements. Now, the crafting of requirements usually starts at a unit level, but at some point in the process, the unit usually sits down with either the district champion, the special needs champion, or somebody from their district advancement team who is familiar with the process and can help them with what some suitable adjustments can be. For instance, we had a scout that had a heart condition that could not jump into a pool to start the swim test. We were able to get an accommodation where because it was too dramatic to jump in, but we were able to get an accommodation where they could ease their way into the pool and get accustomed to it. Once they were in the pool, they were able to do the test as written, but they just couldn't do that one piece. So, a lot of this is sitting down with the family and the unit leader and the advancement folks and figuring out what the end goal is for that requirement. What are we trying to get from this? And in this case, we wanted him to be able to do the swim test to the best of his ability. Now, we've had other circumstances where we had other scouts that had a couple of kids that had heart conditions that their heart rate couldn't get up too high. So we allowed them to do the rank requirements wearing a personal flotation device so that they could do it at their own pace and it wasn't as much of a strain on their system, and their doctor approved that. We're never going to put anything in writing that says that the scout has to do something that is going to fly in the face of what medical experts have told us about this scout. Okay, we'll find some way to modify those rank requirements so that they can achieve them within their abilities. But the unit can craft the requirements that they think. They're going to talk it over with somebody. It goes to the committee for evaluation. And if that gets approved, it's authorized and noted, and then this unit is notified that that's what they're going to be working from. There are occasions where we have put together an individualized scout advancement plan, and as the scout, it's from scout up to first class. So maybe the scouts' abilities have changed. Maybe their medical situation has changed somewhere along the line, and we can modify that as needed. So just because it gets approved once, as the scouts working their way through, if they come up against something that it has changed, it can be revisited, and we have the ability to change that. Dave, do you want to take this?
Sure. As I think we mentioned a little earlier, we cannot change anything in a merit badge requirement whatsoever. As a merit badge says you need to do something, we can't say that a scout with some type of disability doesn't have to do that part of a merit badge. All we can do is substitute a different merit badge for one that they cannot accomplish the requirements. So similar challenges. And that can be is certainly an individualized thing depending on what the individual's disability is. That that should be fairly clear to everybody. We can interpret how somebody documents something, but we cannot change that they don't have to document that. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. You want to go on to the next slide, Kyle?
The other thing I would like to add here is that if you apply for an alternate Eagle Scout rank badge, it has to be one that has not yet been earned. So they can't swap out something that they have in a list of other merit badges that they had as electives and say, well, I did this one over here. I'd like to replace that. It has to be one that has not yet been earned.
So that's a very good point, and that it's so, that, and I've seen where a scout has completed quite a few merit badges and then run into this issue of not being able to do such as, say, swimming, and many of the typical alternative merit badges that we've used in the past have already been accomplished, and so it does sometimes make a little difficult for those scouts if they're pushing themselves and getting a lot of merit badges and not thinking about the issues they may have trying to accomplish the Eagle required ones. So on a board of review, we want to make sure that, as Colleen mentioned early on, anxiety is certainly something that may or may not be well documented for an individual scout. And we have had experience where a scout literally broke down in the board of review, and no one really knew that was an issue for this scout. And had we known that prior to the board of review, we would have obviously done some things prior to getting him in the room of adults to make sure that that scout was more comfortable and made some other modifications. As you can see here, there are a few things. These are just suggestions of things that can be done. Certainly, if you have other ideas, a board of review is not a test. It is to find out from the scout how things are going in their scouting program. So, that's what really we need to make sure that, scouts, it certainly, as we know from Tenderfoot, for those that have been around scouting for a little bit, to watch somebody go from their first board of review to a Eagle board of review, or even just first class, certainly there's always, the the confidence level certainly increases as they move on. So certainly we want to make sure that it's workable for any scout who may have a disability also that could be impacted by them being in that situation. Here's some issues that you could run into that may make it a little more difficult for us as leaders or members of the unit. Trying to figure out if your scout should be in a unit, a regular unit or a special unit. There are a few in the council, but quite honestly, our goal is to incorporate as many scouts with different abilities into regular units, be they male, boy, girl, or a family unit, for the benefit of all scouts, because we think that there is, as we talked about earlier, a much more it's better for all of the scouts. We come out with a more well-rounded group of individuals, and they learn how to work with each other. The other issue that comes up is that a scout may have issues, and the parents aren't willing to share that information with you. We do have some I won't say backdoor ways. I'll say ways of getting some information by filling out forms as a unit when somebody comes on, when scouts are new into a unit, asking that each family member or unit of that the scout fill out some paperwork that and do it for all scouts, so you can identify how they learn, what their favorite things to do are. Do they not like certain things? Do they have any food allergies? It's a very broad information sheet about an individual that can help identify some issues that they may not be willing to give you full disclosure on. Obviously, we've all run into the helicopter parent, and sometimes that becomes an issue too. And we can say, I certainly for us, one of Colleen's favorite comments when our son was in scouting is that your parents weren't on any of the outings. We were there as scout leaders, and we tried to let other leaders interact more with our son than ourselves, because we did not want to be the overprotective parent, or the having our son rely on us for things. We wanted
to give him room to grow.
And yes, for him to have the experience that every other scout has with through failure they learn, right? So that's some of the things, other things here too. Medication nowadays is also something that we want to make sure we're certainly aware of. It used to be that all medication had to be given to if you were at a camp, to the nurse. Well, now that isn't quite the situation. It can be administered by others, but you have to make sure that communication is with the parent, and everything is understood with those situations.
And that you're sharing that information with the person they're handing a medication off. If I had a nickel for every time somebody handed me medication for their child, and I didn't see any corresponding reason the kid was taking any medication on the, like, is this temporary? Have they been ill? Is that, why am I giving this medication to the kid? Because it's not on the form. And it's important that you understand, what it is. You don't need to have the whole medical history of that child in order to be able to administer the medicine, but you need enough that you can give the child back in the same condition you received him in, them. So we talked briefly about the individual scout advancement plan, like an IEP for scouting that takes a scout from the scout rank up through the first class rank. So it's both a roadmap for the parents and the unit. So it's going to be something that you're documenting what the scout is changing that's different from the advancement that is found in the scout manual. And they make a point of calling this a contract. And it is, once it's established, once it's put together by the unit and approved by both the council or the district advancement and the council advancement, that's what you're following. So making sure that everybody is on the same page so that you're all in agreement as to what the path forward looks like for your scout. And it's important to have an open dialogue. We do reference the BSA form number, but if you Google BSA individual scout advancement plan, the actual form comes up. So I would highly encourage anybody that decides that they are going down this path to contact your district special needs champion for them to help you through the process so that you don't lose time. You don't get frustrated. They have an idea of what would be accepted in terms of modifications for that ISAP. So they're there and they're willing to help. I would take advantage of them. So we have a few scenarios here that we've put together and this is an audience participation part of the program. But here's scenario one. A scout permanently uses a wheelchair. He needs to hike and wants to join his troop for a day hike. Is it considered hiking if he is in his wheelchair? Why or why not?
Don't all jump in or put your hands
PTAC
up.
has her hand up. Go ahead. Are you Tech? Are you there?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm over here. So, it's a hiking because this is a kind of accommodation for that kid because it's part of his, the daily life thing. You cannot take this away. Instead of using his foot every day, he uses or she uses wheelchair. So this is definitely an accommodation. So we consider this the hiking.
Absolutely. So that's the mobility device for the scouts. So they are allowed to use it and it is considered hiking. Scenario two, a scout's well on his way to Eagle. The scout is planning on finishing by the time the scout is 17 and a half, but at 17 is in an automobile accident. The scout's in the hospital and then rehab for 6 months and can't participate in scouts. Might the scout qualify for an extension time for Eagle rank?
I'll take that one because as you know, Colleen, we deal with this on the advancement committee frequently, and the answer is unquestionably yes. The key to that scenario is it is something that is out of the control of the scout, which that clearly is.
Absolutely. So that, any kind of temporary scenario. So although this is scouts with special needs advancement information, a lot of that section 10 of the guide to advancement applies to circumstances beyond your control, things that came up that you couldn't possibly have accounted for, and it tells you how to navigate those. So scenario three, a scout is 17 and a half and realizes there will be enough time to finish Eagle. The scout has a learning disability and applies for an extension in time. Should it be approved? Why or why not? And I believe this is a typo. I believe that's supposed to say will not be enough time to finish it.
I was going to say, yeah.
Because I was like, why would he apply for an extension if
it's going to be?
Yeah. So we'll take that to mean not. Do you want to answer that one, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, there are circumstances where we would grant an extension. Part of that would be they would have to be sufficiently close enough. They don't have a lot of merit badges yet to complete. and their project is already in process. So that answer, as you see on the screen, is maybe. I won't say it unequivocally yes, but we've seen those situations, and our goal as an advancement committee is to look for a legitimate reason to grant an extension if we can find one.
Mhm. And to your point, it does say some learning disabilities, you might be able to get an extension. The thing here is if you go and read through section 10 of the Guide to Advancement, it specifically calls out that ADHD and ADD do not fall into this category because for most people, that's a lifelong, like it was diagnosed pretty early in the process. It's something that they deal with and have learned to adapt to. So generally speaking, those two are excluded from the extension scenario. So, just keep that in the back of your mind. They recognize that it is a disability, but doesn't rise to the level of an extension. Scenario 4. Dave, do you want to read this one?
Sure. A blind scout reports completing astronomy merit badge. He asks the scout how the youth identified constellations. The scout replies that the merit badge counselor punched holes in paper plates, held them over the scout's head outside at night in the right place of the night sky, and the scout felt the holes in the plate to identify the constellation. Should this be acceptable? Why or why not?
Dave.
Go right ahead.
I think it's acceptable because this is another accommodation because he cannot see. The only thing is he can just feel it.
It
Absolutely.
is the Braille way of seeing the stars.
Yeah, there's all sorts of creative interpretations. Like we've said, it's no more, no less. The scout still has to go through all of the requirements being asked of them in a merit badge, but I've seen some very creative interpretations that actually I've seen people do things and then I tuck it away in the back of my head for that's really clever. I hadn't really considered that. And sometimes when we're working with a scout who has special needs, we've been known to crowdsource answers. So we have resources on our team. There are there's champions for all of the districts, but we also have people that are educators like P-Tech, who is on the call with us tonight. She's a special ed teacher. And we've tapped into her a number of times for, what would you recommend in a scenario like this? How could we do an accommodation? We have a physical therapist, we have doctors. So, the person that you're talking to on our team might not necessarily know the answer to your question, but we know who to go to get the answers. So, we have a very robust group of deep thinkers on the subject. Anyway, to sum it all up, the scouts that we are helping, I think very often we get caught up in the word disabilities when we really should be thinking about it in different abilities. Not to impose our viewpoints or our life experiences on the scouts that we're helping, because I will tell you a million different times when I've been dealing with my son's disabilities, I am the expert in him. I am not the expert in anybody else's kid. And I am very willing to ask questions to find out, how does your scout learn best? And, what will make them more comfortable and what's the best approach? And, sometimes it's settings, sometimes it's, it's delivery. And everybody learns different. I don't care if they're neurotypical or, neurodivergent. Everybody has some method that speaks to them a little bit, better, like they prefer something worked with them in a certain way. So that's something to keep in the back of your head when we're working with scouts with different abilities. And we want to make sure that we are removing as many barriers to success as we can. So again, getting back to the creative interpretations and, figuring out the best path to success. And our group, and I think pretty much everybody that I have encountered in scouting, we want to make sure that every scout experience has the best scouting has to offer. And their takeaway is something that is lifelong and something to be proud of, regardless of what their abilities are. So,
I-
Dave, is there anything you want to add there?
Yeah.
Yes, there is. It was just, we also, we encourage, units to, find others in their, individual units, other youth that, the, scouts with different abilities may have, some tie or a scout that is very empathetic and works well with that individual, that rather than it just being the adults, because it is certainly sometimes better for the youth to have somebody else help them, and obviously we don't want to get in the way of things. So if the scouts themselves can help each other, that's the best solution.
And I will add that because I have seen that in real time where a scout with special needs, the other scouts in that unit become a lot more empathetic and will go out of their way to assist in all kinds of different ways, and they grow as well. It's not just the scout with special needs, it's the other scouts that interact with him or her.
Absolutely. I was at an OA event a while back, and I happened to notice that at the next campsite was um, a bunch of scouts that were around the campfire, and there was one scout that had a white cane with, the tip on it, and another scout that was sitting in a wheelchair. I saw somebody was walking with braces, and there were a whole bunch of able-bodied kids. It was a beehive of activity, but it caught my eye in a way that I'm curious. I walked over there and introduced myself, and I said, I noticed how diverse your group is and how well everybody was working together. And this is it was out of a different council, but they shared with me that they had a very robust group of scouts. I think they said they had over 50 kids, and they had all sorts of different abilities, and the kids worked together to plan their outings, and all of their outings were planned to the least common denominator. So if they had a scout that could not make it their way over rough terrain, then they went to a national park where they had paved paths. If they had a scout that could not eat gluten, then they prepared meals that were gluten-free. If they had, it was really, I sat with this unit for probably a couple hours. I was so impressed by how all of these scouts were interacting with each other as if no barriers is really what I walked away with, is there were no barriers for these kids. They weren't seeing the differences in each other. I mean, it struck me as an outsider, but it struck me in such a positive way. And I think everybody was getting something out of it. And I think that kind of empathy is contagious. And that everybody feels good with those interactions. So the next part is we have resources that are available. These are just some lists of things. What we mentioned at the beginning, that the council webpage has a tab that is devoted to special needs scouting. There's all sorts of resource information. When Dave mentioned the form that we recommend that it for the new scouts coming in, where we gather information that is helpful when you have a scout with special needs, and it's helpful for every other scout too, you're going to find that under the special needs tab. You'll find links to the national web pages, the inclusion toolbox, which is National's gathering a repository of all sorts of different types of materials that are helpful with scouts with special needs. We have things on there too, collections of things that we have gathered through our interactions when people have come to us and said, hey, we have a scout who has memory issues. And so we wanted to know if you could give us the Scout oath and law with little pictograms. So, and there's different ways that you can, like the pictograms, well, a Scout is helpful, friendly, courteous, kind. And there's pictures that represent all of those. And you can have the Scouts learning using that visual representation. And then when the time comes where they have to recite it, that can be their guide, their visual guide for being able to and I said the word recite. It doesn't have to be recite. You have a nonverbal Scout, you could give them a stack of those cards all cut up and say put them in order, and they in essence have done the same thing. So a lot of different resources that are available here. And then getting to the Guide to Advancement, Section 10 is the area that you would really want to focus on. There are all sorts of different resources that are available online, and there are links here that you want to take a screenshot of these. That might be helpful. Typically, I would offer to send this to you, but I made a whole bunch of changes to it today, and I don't want to distribute this particular presentation until we kick the tires on it and make sure that all of these links go to where we say they're going. But you should be able to Google all of these and get to the right documents.
And all of these documents are available through the PTech website. So, in fact, Colleen, if we have a
Yep,
moment,
I have it open. Hey, please
I do.
stand by.
Yeah.
And Petek has her hand up.
Oh,
Sorry, I thought that was from before. Patek, did you
Oh.
have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just would like to, maybe I just confused that the IEP thing. Parents, they're not allowed to share the kids' IEP with any unit leaders or anybody else because the Scouting as Boy Scout of America is not part of the educational, the public educational system thing. So they are not. But the thing is, they can. Mostly we talk about those, the modification and those, the adaptation modifications. They can, all those target on those IEPs to academic things. But for me, as a scouter and a special ed teacher, parents should mostly share the kids' behavior or their functional goals if they have, because that affects their, success and their unit things, their merit badges, and because the other ones are okay, they can catch up, but this behavior and functional thing is very important for the scouts. If they cannot control, so they cannot be successful, and the meeting is going to be mess up easily if they're in kind of uh in those cycle body regulation things. So most the parents should share that part instead of the academic.
And I would say that there is nothing to prevent a parent from sharing an IEP they're not expected to, but if they're turning in the documentation for
They
registration
can.
beyond the age, that's not accurate.
So because they cannot share, they're not allowed to share with, but whatever the
Yes,
unit
well,
wants, they
I
can
would
just-
disagree with you, Patek. If the parent is willing to share it, they are able to share it.
if it's the educational extended program, okay, but if it's not, they're not allowed to. That's what they tell us. So, but they can give information as much as possible that helps their scouts in their unit, so not directly the copy, but give the information. Or if they want, they can give all information, but not copy or not written anything.
I beg to differ, but that's okay. We don't have to, we're not the final answers on that, but
No,
we
no, no.
certainly shared our IEPs for our son with others often.
I just, say if someone say, oh, but that's fine. The thing is, you can share as much as information you can, but the most important thing is if they have any behavior goals or they have functional goals. So those are mostly important in scouting.
Sure. All right, let's move on to Colleen. You want to show everybody
Are
where
you
the,
seeing the
yep,
PTAC
yep.
website? Okay, so if you're on the landing page for the Pathway to Adventure Council webpage, you are going to see the banner across the top. We are under programs and committees. And if you scroll down to special needs and scouting, you will find a whole bunch of information here. Committee will tell you who is your special needs champion within your district. There are some inspirational stories. Our mission statement is what our goals are, but resources is really what I wanted to point you to. And you can see under here, there are hyperlinks that will take you to the national websites. So the shortcut to the request for registration beyond the age of eligibility, more information on accommodations. And I'm looking for the
What is it you're looking for?
the document that you were Scout information sheet. I knew it was here. So this is the sheet that Dave was talking about that we recommend that all units hand out at their the new scout
Parent.
meetings.
Yep.
So when they're filling out this information, most of it is very, very, general. But if a parent chooses to share information here, that might be a conversation starter. So you can find out a little bit more about, oh, okay, I see here that you said your scout gets anxious about being around water. Now, can you describe to me, like, is it, cautious because they don't know how to swim, or, it takes you through what you can do with that information. So that's super handy. Anyway, back at
And if you give it that, the reason we suggest you give it to all scouts is that way you're not picking out on any scout that, you may have questions, or a parent may not be real forthcoming and you have thoughts that the individual scout may have some type of invisible issue, that this gives you the opportunity to probe a little deeper if they are forthcoming with some information on that form. So if you give
okay.
it to every scout, it makes life, there is, and no questions asked of, oh, why'd you give it to me and not to him? That kind of thing.
And then I also wanted to share with you, we haven't gotten it up on the webpage yet because we're still kicking the tires on it. But I have another screen that I want to show you if I can get it to. Mhm. Um, Okay, I wanted to click to share the sound. Hang on. So we created a presentation as a conversation starter at a unit level that you should be seeing a
Yep,
Victory XR. It's
yep.
start screen. Okay, so this is just like a 5-minute video that talks about different types of disabilities. We've had a number of different units come to us and say, how do we start this conversation with our unit when we've got scouts that are newly joining that have special needs, and we want to lay the foundation, or we want to do the disability awareness merit badge and we wanted to be able to talk about different types of disabilities. I'm not going to take you through all of this, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of what we have here.
Scouts. Today we're going to embark on a unique journey of empathy.
Can you turn it up a little?
Did you know that approximately 1 in 5 youth have a disability? Some disabilities are visible, while others aren't immediately apparent. In other words, invisible
Is that better?
disabilities.
Yes.
In this experience, we'll explore how we can recognize some of the challenges our fellow scouts face and how we can help support and include them in scouting. This isn't just about learning, it's about seeing beyond the surface and fostering an environment of acceptance and collaboration within our community.
I'm not going to take you through all of it unless you have a burning desire. But it's like 5 minutes. There's a brief quiz, some different scenarios that it talks about how to include somebody that has differences. It touches a little bit on invisible disabilities. It touches a little bit about physical disabilities, but we're hoping that it will meet the needs of the people that have come to us and said, how do we have these conversations? Anyone have any questions or anything you'd like to add?
Great job, Colleen. I'll say that.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey,
This is
Tom.
really informative and helpful. Um, I am a den leader for Cub Scout Pack, but my son is also in it. And this is definitely something I've been kind of thinking about as he's gotten older. He's a Weebelo now, so
Mm.
been kind of trying to figure out what the next steps would be when he crosses over. So this has been really helpful for me.
Oh,
Glad
well,
we
I'm
can-
glad.
Yeah, glad we can help, and certainly we're here to help in any way we can. If you want to reach out afterwards, and talk, one-on-one, we're more than willing to do that too.
Awesome.
Danielle, what district are you in?
Thunderbird.
Oh, are you the one that we met at the
I think we emailed.
Thunderbird Roundtable? Okay, because
And-
David and
and
I
I
were at the
wasn't-
Thunderbird Roundtable a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was there too. I wasn't in
Okay.
person, I was virtual, but
Oh,
I did
okay.
come. Yeah.
Okay. We met a Cub Scout parent with a special needs child in person.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, it's good that you're thinking about it. And I would encourage you to make sure that you have an open dialogue with, whatever units you're looking at, making sure that you feel supported. And
Definitely.
if those units need support, that's what we're here for. Because, we're here to support scouts, parents, unit leaders, whoever needs us. So, sometimes it's everybody. Sometimes
Yeah,
we just have to have a baseline to work from.
absolutely. That's definitely what I'm looking to do. You hear him in the background.
And
But yes,
certainly
definitely. He's kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? But I am very excited now that I feel like I have more of an idea of what I need to do when he crosses over. Um, so already I'm feeling a lot more supported than I was before this. So
Oh, well,
yeah,
we're glad.
yes, I'm really glad I was able to join this.
We firmly believe that no one should have to reinvent the wheel. We can, like I said, we can crowdsource solutions.
Yes, absolutely. And I know, are you guys in the Facebook group that there is? There's
We're
The
not-
No Scout Left Behind, yes.
yes.
And we also have one for Pathway to Adventure Council.
Oh,
We have a Facebook group that, it's not we're still growing it, but, if you ever leave a message for the one at Pathway to Adventure, I'm the one that manages that. So anything comes
Okay.
directly to me. There are a lot of different ways to get to us. So.
Awesome. I love the accessibility.
All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share, Ed?
Colleen, I just would like to share something, but it's just the opposite thing. How the scouting helps the kids. I have two kids who is in autism spectrum, and they are in troop in Enya. It's completely different council because I work in that area. And by chance, I learned that they were in the troop because they were talking about the camping coming next week. And then the teachers, they were complaining about their behaviors all the time, how they are distracting the classroom and towards their teacher. But when I learned that, I start talking about scouting. Oh, which troop are you in? So what are you doing? They are sixth graders. And then I printed the scout law, and just stick behind their iPads. And I told them, okay, when you start saying something or doing something, I just want you to turn your iPads, the back, and I want you to read that Scott law. So the thing is, you're going to say is appropriate for the scouting. And then you know what? In like a couple of weeks later, the teachers said they start changing. So it's awesome.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is a great way
Yeah.
of bringing scouting everywhere.
Yeah.
Just start a wave. That's great. Okay. Well, we really appreciate everybody joining in tonight. That hopefully we will talk to you in the future. You know how to reach us, and just keep in mind we're always happy to help.
Thank you so much for all the information and the resources. Greatly appreciated.
You're very welcome.
Glad we could help.
Okay. I don't know if Pat is still on. I'm thinking that if we all leave, the recording will stop.
He
But
just
good night.
unmuted. So
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, all right.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Oh, have a good night. Thanks. Bye.
All right.